happening, gang? It's your boy Retro back again with another reaction video. Yeah. Today we got another huge update. Now, you guys can probably already tell that it is going down. Just by that title alone, you guys are definitely going to want to see this one. So we got Trump's Attorney General Bondi now drawing that line in the sand against these activist judges that keep coming after Donald Trump with the aimless lawsuits and injunctions, now promising criminal prosecution for those who dare to oppose. Guys, I'm excited to get into this one, so we're not straight into it. I'll ask that you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's jump straight into it, folks. Check this one out.
Hitting the Trump administration so far, 17 injunctions. Those are all tied to some of the 174 lawsuits filed against the president's agenda. Now, reminder, President Trump has only been in office just over 2 months, exactly 77 days. Here's Attorney General Bondi.
Over 170 lawsuits filed against us. That should be the constitutional crisis right there. 50 injunctions. They're popping up every single day, trying to control his executive power. It's basically a game of whack-a-mole with these district court judges around the country who have a tremendous amount of power. They believe they do, but that's why we're appealing all of these cases, of course, up to the Supreme Court.
Oh, they believe they have the power, all right. A new headline reads, as judges stymie Trump with nationwide orders, pressure builds on the U.S. Supreme Court. The Senate Judiciary Committee took up this topic in a hearing just last week.
Although our founders saw an important role for the judiciary, they didn't design a system that made judges national policymakers.
Democrats today are angry at the voters for re-electing Donald Trump and electing a Republican Senate and a Republican House, and they engaged in lawfare to stop democracy from operating.
You don't need to be some soothsayer or the oracle at Delphi to understand that there's something amiss here.
All right, let's talk to him ourselves and focus now. The senator you just saw in that last clip, Republican Eric Schmitt of the great state of Missouri, member of the Judiciary Committee. Great to see you. So talk to me, if you can, about reining in these judges and what is realistic that you can get done.
Yeah, I think to step back, what's the real problem here? Really, for the first 200 years of our country, we really didn't see any of this kind of stuff. This is a crisis of the 21st century, and specifically with liberal activist judges. In the first less than 100 days of President Trump's administration here, you've seen more injunctions than the 12 years between Obama's two terms and Joe Biden. So these judges are more than willing to play an outsized role beyond their Article III authority. So there's a few things that are happening. One is some legislation to say one single judge can't do this. Maybe you need a panel. That Senate Judiciary hearing that you heard, that you clipped up from last week, was Senator Grassley's legislation, which would say those district court judges really only have jurisdiction for the parties that are in front of them. I think broadly speaking, though, as these cases make their way up to the Supreme Court, President Trump is going to be successful because he's either operating as commander-in-chief with his Article II powers as the executive, or controlling the programming and personnel of the Article II branch. Unlike Joe Biden, who was trying to steamroll the Constitution by saying OSHA could force 100 million people to get a vaccine well beyond his authority. Really what President Trump's trying to do is actually rein in the power of the administrative state. So I think he's going to be successful. One other thing to note here. These cases are also supposed to be randomly assigned. Judge Boasberg, over the weekend, it came out, he's not the emergency judge in D.C. He inserted himself in that role. He was on vacation. The case was filed at 2:30 in the morning. Somehow he ended up with that case. He wasn't the emergency judge on duty. So I think this requires further investigation and legislation.
So let me get that straight, because I'll quote you on that, because that is news to me and maybe a lot of other people too. If he wasn't the emergency judge who would naturally matriculate into that position on this, he just gets to pick himself and say, well, I'm the favorite. Let me go do this case against Trump.
He's the chief judge, and he inserted himself. That doesn't happen. The emergency judges 100% of the time get those cases. So he could have been tipped off that this was going to be filed, and while on vacation, he took the case. So again, this speaks to, I think, the very aggressive, unusual, and unprecedented measures that these activist judges are taking to insert themselves. Ultimately, they're not going to be right. The Supreme Court's going to slap them down. But the Judicial Conference, Chief Justice Justice Roberts ought to look at this. And we also, the Article 1 branch, I intend to file legislation to make sure this randomness, which is supposed to happen when these cases are assigned, actually happens. We need more transparency because right now, people don't think it's random at all.
So what I think you are getting at is the politics that potentially are being played, where a judge who may feel a certain way politically may step up against Trump at this point. So it fits right in with a brand new opinion piece titled "America Has a Robed Politician Problem," arguing that the left, unable to secure their agenda at the ballot box, has turned to national injunctions as a weapon to engineer outcomes they could not achieve democratically. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is really the fundamental difference between a conservative justice and a liberal activist judge. The conservative will view the law as it's written, not how they want it to be. But the liberals, for a very long time in this country, they had control of the Supreme Court. They just made up things. They made up rights that didn't exist to get to a political outcome. Now that you have a more conservative court, they're desperate. They're not in power in Congress anymore. And so I think a lot of these judges are taking it upon themselves to usurp really important power. For example, when President Trump declared a predatory incursion of these criminal violent gangs, he's well within his Article 2 executive power to deport them. He can do that. The judge, by stepping in there, Judge Boasberg, by stepping in the case that we're talking about, he somehow got, said you can't do that. That is like that judge dictating missile strikes or deciding troop movements. Those are national security issues. Those are those are powers of the commander in chief that the judge doesn't get to do. So the separation of powers works both ways. You don't get to kind of jump into the Article 2 branch's authority on commander-in-chief powers. So I think you're about to see all these cases make their way to the Supreme Court, and I think President Trump's on very firm ground. But we should address these abuses that are happening now every day.
Right. Well, I mean, he's got 4 years. So who's to think that they're going to stop anytime soon, no matter how these recent cases work out? I'm so glad you explained that, particularly with this Boasberg situation and the border. The border, of course, we have already known. We lived through it for 4 years, Senator. That was a national security threat. The president now getting his arms around that. So it seems so simplistic the way that you lay it out. Your last thought.
Yeah, I think look, President Trump's right. These are domestic cases. That's in one bucket. Then you've got these commander-in-chief cases in another bucket. But either way, President Trump's acting within his authority. You might have some hiccups here along the way, but ultimately I think we're going to get to the right result. But we should take a look at the abuses as well.
Yo, there we have it, guys. We're still somehow seeing these activist judges get in the way of Donald Trump being able to exercise those executive powers that the people of our great nation voted him in to perform. This is lawfare if I've ever seen it. Now we're getting new details saying that this Judge Boasberg came off of vacation and overstepped the emergency judge that was in place that was supposed to originally take the case and said, hey, no, I'll handle this. We've seen that before. What was it? Top level Biden DOJ official Michael Colangelo coming down to assist the prosecution of Donald Trump. They do this every single time. It's time we start to see some repercussion for their actions. Until we draw that line and say, hey, you're going to get slapped with charges, you're going to get fired. You see what happened to the last guy, that it's going to continue to go on. These lunatic, these liberal activists, I'm not even going to keep calling them activist judges because we see that what their aim is. We see their position. They're just there to try to get in the way of Donald Trump's mission, his agenda. I mean, come on, you guys. Donald Trump won that election fair and square. We voted that man in to carry out exactly what we're seeing happen across our nation. Now they're trying to say they're defending democracy. No, you're stopping democracy from working because you lost. You guys are a bunch of sore losers, and it shows, guys. Definitely hop in the comments section, though. Let me know your thoughts. Comments are open, and I'm excited to hear what you guys are thinking on this. Also, make sure you guys please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you did enjoy more content like this, catch you guys on the next one.